It was only a month ago when I was in Florida when I heard the word that Trayvon Martin had been killed as he was on his way to visit his father. I couldn't believe it then, and it's hard to even believe now that over a month later that the person who's been accused of killing him has not yet been able to be brought into a place of justice or be able to at least go into a police department and begin a process to find out just what happened. The reason I'm concerned about this today is I believe this is really nothing new, particularly for black boys and even black men. Even as a black man, I've had to face the indignities that Trayvon Martin has. I can remember walking up to my own home in my own neighborhood at 8 o'clock in the evening and being stopped by a policeman and asking, "Boy, what are you doing here?" I was surprised by, first of all, being called a boy, but then secondly, what am I doing here? What I'm doing here, sir, is going to my home. I live here. I have a flashback to almost 30 years ago when I was a youth minister at the First Baptist Church of Ontario and being asked to call upon an elderly member of our church. And I went to her house. She was a white woman, a white neighborhood. I go to her door and I knock on the door. And as I knock on the door, suddenly I'm told from behind me, "Freeze, nigga, put your hands up." And I turn around and being asked, "What are you doing here?" And I respond, "Sir, I'm simply trying to exercise my ministry." One would think that over the course of these 30 years, things might have changed. But I'm thinking about my son and how we gave him a 5-year-old car to be able to make his way from our house to Youngstown, Ohio, where he was a college student at the time. I gave him a car and I said goodbye to him. It was normally a 5-hour trip from our door to Youngstown, Ohio. 8 hours later, my son comes through the house, and I'm wondering, "What are you doing here, Ace?" And he hands me the keys to his car. He says, "Dad, I don't want the car." I said, "What's wrong with the car? I just spent $2,500 fixing the car up." He says, "Dad, I was stopped twice on my way trying to make my way back to my dorm room." It's dangerous being a young boy driving or walking while being black. So I'm just concerned about in our country that we consider giving every person the dignity that is deserving of them. It breaks my heart that this young man is killed while he's carrying a can of tea and Skittles in his hand, trying to make his way back home simply to see his father. But even more so, I'm troubled by how guns are so easily accessible and how they can be put into the hands of persons for whom there is absolutely no accountability when they use them. So I appeal to all of us that as we look at the millions of persons around us, and particularly those of color, and particularly black boys, that we don't make an automatic assessment that because they might be dressed differently, or look differently, or somehow feel as though they are out of place in our society, that we negate them to the margins, or even worse, that we assign them to the morgue. So today, in memory of Trayvon Martin and the millions of others who face such indignities, we lift our prayers for their families, and we lift our prayers for our country. May God bless us as we seek to try to find a new and better way.